there are winners and there are losers in this world, and we're kind of the species that is winning.
Do you think white people said the same thing during slavery? Do you know like why people are vegan?
Yeah, I would say it's overall like very beneficial for the planet and for sometimes for your health.
Yeah. And anyone else?
And animals. Yeah, that would make sense. Yeah.
A lot of people think of veganism as like a diet, and that's certainly how I thought of it. But now I think of it as more like a social justice movement for animals, in the same way that like feminism is a movement for women, like getting animals' rights. So do you think that animals should have rights?
Definitely.
I think they should definitely not be mistreated. Okay. I don't know exactly what that looks like, but I think you definitely have a lot of room for improvement in the way that we treat them now.
How bad do you think the meat and dairy industry is for the animals on a scale of 1 to 10?
Probably 10. It's basically like a continuous holocaust. Like imagine I kept like all these people in my basement. I was just raising them to be killed.
Background, I'm trying to do a little bit of like work, and we started raising cattle up at our ranch in Washington, and we're going grass-fed, grass-finished, and trying to do it as like ethically as possible. And I'm also at USC right now. We're trying to do we're working on a project to do beef tracing, and we were going to provide good data, animals that were treated as humanely as possible until their ultimate death, and that's a sacrifice, and I get that, and I thought we'd have so many like farms that we could go on and test, and I have been really surprised by the lack of partners that we would have. I thought the situation looked a lot better before getting into it.
How cows are killed is really barbaric and terrible.
How are they killed?
There's some of the places have this like piston that comes in and hits them in the head, and that's really horrible and very sad.
Yeah, so that's supposed to stun them so that they're like not conscious when their throats are slit, but it doesn't work like around 12% of the time, so then they are conscious. And another thing I found out that's terrifying is so after they're kind of bled out, their skin is pulled off for like leather, but sometimes they'll be conscious during that. It's rare, but like it does happen. Yeah, exactly. Do you think there's a humane way to kill an animal?
I would say there is a humane way to kill an animal.
How?
I would say if you hunt it, and
I'm a hunter.
Okay, awesome. Are you?
Well, so there are a lot of stray cats in my neighborhood. So I'm actually a cat hunter, or a cunter, I call it, because it's overpopulation. It's getting out.
That's a great name for it. I love that.
Once we hit 3 degrees Celsius warming, then the world just dies. So animal products are a big part of emissions.
So are you pro shooting cats?
Well, that's an interesting one. I don't know. So the way that I'm familiar with the killing of animal species is with cattle, you do it as low stress as process, and then you do one bull right in the head, and so it's this minimal, we try and minimize the amount of harm, but also, we eat animals. I think what's really cool, and I might sound like a bit of a hippie for saying this, what's really cool is when you're hunting and you are familiar, you earned your way to, eat that animal, and then you thank that animal.
What kind of the biggest driver of deforestation is? It's typically happening in Brazil, the rainforest.
Get land for cattle.
Yeah, exactly. So a lot of people know that it's soy, right? And then they're like, oh, vegans are eating soy, so it's vegans' fault. But it's actually partially for cattle and also partially to grow soy to feed to chickens and pigs and other livestock animals. So it's all kind of connected with animal agriculture. And you were talking about emissions. I think that's a really important part of it. It's also the amount of water that these animals have to drink and the amount of food that they have to consume. How could I earn my way to hunt you?
To hunt me?
Yeah. What would I have to do to earn that?
Well, I think you'd have to do it legally.
Okay.
And so if I had done something wrong and there was a bounty on my head and I was wanted dead or alive, and then you were able to overpower me, but I would also have to step outside that system.
But I'd also be thanking you too. So does that give me extra points?
No, I mean, that's a fair point. No, because at that point, if you were hounding me for bounty, I guess if I'm paying your bills, there's kind of a transaction thing where the bounty on my head is paying your bills. No, I think you devise systems which you do it in the most ethical way.
I guess for you, it sounds like it's more like your morals are kind of in line with veganism. It's just the practical stuff.
Yeah, it's more of the practical things I talk about all the time. When I'm older, I'd love to be able to have my own chickens.
Would you eat them?
Yes, I would eat them.
Do you think there is an ethical way to like kill someone who doesn't want to die?
If that person's trying to kill other people, for sure, yeah.
What if they're not? Like, what if it's a cow?
Yeah, I see what you mean.
I'm curious, like, why would you want to kill your own chickens if, like, you don't think there's a humane way to kill them?
I like meat and I like eating meat.
Sure.
So I think that if I had my own very small, like, urban farm, I would know that these chickens had a really wonderful life. I loved them, that I really cared for them. And I would be much more connected to my food than so disconnected. And that might change my mind about eating them in the future, having that kind of connection.
Say we're going to kill a person, we're going to kill a cow. Like, what's the morally relevant difference between humans and cows that justifies killing cows but not humans?
I would honestly say that there's a very like primal instinct just ingrained in like humans, and that there are winners and there are losers in this world, and we're kind of the species that is winning.
Do you think white people said the same thing during slavery?
You know, probably, and I think we should probably get a lot better at doing this.
Do you think that like humans need to eat meat to survive and thrive?
Well, we're carnivores, right? So I think humans just need to. We can adapt to anything. If we wanted to, we could not eat meat. It's kind of a choice at this point, especially with all these like alternative meat products. It's basically a choice. But the American diet, there's just so much meat. Like everywhere you go, it's hard to make that choice.
No, I agree. There's something in us that like wants to protect our tribe and ourselves, and like now I think it's species. But the way I see morality evolving is essentially like, yeah, white people were like, oh, black people don't matter. We can treat them as slaves. Men said, women are only here for us. We can do whatever we want with women. Women had to take their right to vote and, you know, be treated as equals. And as of right now, we treat cats and dogs with respect, even though they're a different species. Do you think it's possible there could be a future where we treat farm animals with respect in the same way we do with dogs and cats already?
I think that would be a really inspiring future to look forward to.
Do you want to be part of it?
Yeah, I think I am trying to be part of it.
Okay.
But I think in order to get to that, you have to check your boxes first. So we have to do, and from the background and the research that I've looked at, we have to switch to regenerative and locally based agriculture systems.
Say we have like a dog here and someone starts like beating the dog. You know, we don't think, like if I didn't think that it was bad that people beat dogs, that wouldn't change the morality of that action because the dog would be suffering. So in this case, we should be putting ourselves in the position of the victims or the farm animals and saying like, are they, from their perspective, is killing them okay?
No.
Say I live next to a slaughterhouse. It's local. Is that okay?
Well, I'm sorry if you live next to a slaughterhouse. Those things.
They usually put them next to poor people, so.
Yeah. Or out in the. No, that's true. Like that's unfortunate, but you know, environmental racism is a real thing.
So the reason I bring that up is because the meat industry likes to use terms like it used to be humane. I think it's local now. They're like, oh, it's local. It's okay. It's local. It's okay.
Yeah.
But there could be a local factory farm that's still local. So I'm just kind of trying to find the morality of the word local, and I feel like it's like a buzzword.
Yeah, I look at local more as the way that like the food that is coming off a system, like if we look at California's water system, for example, that shit is not, like I live in Los Angeles now, and that is not a local water system, and you're destroying other parts of the environment to benefit this.
Do you think taste pleasure is more important than animals' lives?
That's a deep question for any man to answer. I don't want to.
You don't want to answer?
Yeah, that's pretty deep.
Do you have any like good moral arguments against veganism?
Against veganism? Definitely not. Definitely no moral arguments against veganism.
Could you see yourself going vegan in the future?
If I had like a easy to follow diet, I tried like several times, but I failed because I got lazy or I wasn't full. So if there was like an easy guide, especially if you're like a guy and you want to like get big muscles too.
Yeah.
Like, a lot of guys worry about protein.
Do you think you could get enough protein from plants?
I mean, I could, yeah.
Okay.
I have no problem with that. I mean, beans and rice is a power
Yeah.
I mean, that
yeah,
alone.
it's so great.
I mean, when I cook, and when I live in the summers, I don't have the school food, so I had to find a way to financially sustain myself. And beans and rice is a go-to for me.
Since you brought up something that would help you, I actually have. It's a website. It's called challenge22.com. I'll write it down for you after this. And basically, you can sign up and do like a 22-day vegan challenge. And you have nutritionists, and they help you find options around you. They walk you through everything, and they help you like kind of educate yourself about what's going on with the animal industry, because I think that that's a really important part of it. Is that something you would want to check out?
Definitely.
How would we keep American ranchers? What kinds of jobs? Because we're already losing tons of jobs from coal, and if we had American ranching families in areas that you can't really graze for crops because you've got slopes, which cows can do, where would you see American ranching families?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. So one thing I will say is that a lot of the smaller ranching families have already gone out of business because of these big farms, but let's say they are small families. So one thing that I think we should do is that the government already subsidizes the meat industry very heavily. It's actually not profitable, but they get billions of dollars in subsidies every year. So we should change the subsidies to encourage them to keep their land, rewild it, do whatever, or make water parks or something, golf course. Rich people love golf. Start golf courses. Like, there are so many options besides just grazing animals. And I will say half of the land in the U.S. is dedicated toward animal farming. We've got a housing crisis. Like, think of how many people we could house. The government could subsidize that. There's so many solutions that we could be thinking about. But yeah, I'm really glad you asked that question. Yeah.
Interesting. Awesome. Well, I have no further questions.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for talking to me. I really appreciate it. And yeah, I definitely want to get your contact info and learn more about kind of the work you're doing, because I do want to like know the whole process of everything for sure. Sweet. All right. Thanks. Thank you for watching today. If you enjoyed this video, please hit that like button. If you want to support my work, please become a patron today. As always, thank you to my morally superior patrons, Amy, Andy, and Deepak.